It is 6:37 p.m. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the October 2021 General Membership Meeting of the Arlington Branch NAACP. Thank you all for joining us. We have an interesting program scheduled for this evening. It can easily take up to 2 or 3 hours to discuss all of this, so I'm not going to prolong our business meeting. I will go over a few things that we have been dealing with over the past month or since the September meeting. So of course, redistricting is a big issue. We're going to today focus on mostly local redistricting, but we'll touch on state redistricting. And those state maps aren't finalized, but we've got people making movement around to prepare to run for office in some of these proposed new districts, but we'll talk about that soon. Wanted to, of course, not forget about or remember or remind everybody about what just occurred with Timberview High School, that shooting over there. And before I go any further, I'll come back to this, and because I forgot to open our meeting with prayer. So if trying to see if Billy or Dwayne, one of you all will officially open us up with prayer, that would be great.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we come before you once again, just thanking you for blessing us with your daily blessings. As we ask, Father, as we come together, and we know there's a lot going on in our community, that you would help us, Father, to understand what you are doing in this time, and most of all, what you would have us to do at this time. Give us the wisdom and knowledge that we need to stand up for the oppressed, to speak out for those who have no voice. In our Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray, amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Apologies for that. So with regard to the Timberview High School shooting that occurred in Arlington, as you are aware, but it's Mansfield Independent School District, the Arlington NAACP Education Committee has a relationship with Mansfield ISD. In fact, we meet with them quarterly or as issues arise. And in fact, we had our quarterly meeting scheduled with them on the day that the shooting took place. And so Madam Chair, Education Chair Tia Cole, out of respect for the events that were occurring real time on that day, she canceled the meeting with the superintendent and the staff that we typically meet with. And I see Madam Education Chair's on the call. Do you have anything additional to add to that? Okay. All right. Thank you. We will get that meeting rescheduled, and I'm sure school safety, metal detectors, additional officers, all of those things will be a part of our agenda. I can assure you of that. In addition, so with regard to that, I did receive several calls and texts and things like that asking exactly what the Arlington NAACP was going to be doing with regard to this shooting. And so, I'll tell you, like I've told everybody else, first, we're going to wait until we have all of the facts. This does not appear to be a civil rights issue or discrimination issue, but of course we are all, we are ever concerned about our kids, our students, our community. But first we need to obtain the facts. I've been in constant communication with the Arlington Chief of Police, and I've also had conversations with the Mansfield Chief of Police. So there are a lot of unknowns, and so we're going to wait until we know what occurred in that instance. So let's just be in prayer for all of the families, all of the victims involved, and the entire school district. Also, we'll soon do, I think we will soon do an interview with the Star Telegram. They're doing a series on traffic stops. And so our criminal justice team is looking at the racial profiling reports and all of those types of reports, so that when we do an interview with them, we will comment intelligently. I've also talked to the police chief and had Chief Jones send over information about his program with regard to traffic stops as crime prevention tactic. And so once we go over that information, our legal team and our criminal justice team will do the interview with the Star Telegram. We had our state NAACP convention over the weekend. A number of you attended, and I hope you thought it was a good convention. It was a very good informative convention from my perspective, and efficient, well run via Zoom, and discussed a ton of issues. And I think you can go to the Texas State Conference of NAACP Units Facebook page, and you will find all of the sessions there, because they were streamed live and recorded via Facebook. So go there and get up to date on what's happening across the state with regard to civil rights and social justice and voting and all of those issues. And as information, I was re-elected as first vice president of the state NAACP. Not sure if that's a great thing, but I'm honored to serve. I think that's all I have now in the, let's see if any of the committee chairs would like to give a report. Do we have anything from the health committee? Chairwoman Lisa Staples-Wary?
No, I don't have anything right now, other than there is still COVID testing available, and boosters are out for people who have had the Pfizer,
Okay.
Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson boosters are not out yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Youth Council, UTA advisor, Ms. Mannings, do you have anything?
Sorry. No, not really. It's just that we had the UTA unit had their first meeting a couple weeks ago, and they had an amazing turnout. They're happy to be back on campus, and so the university is excited for them. So they have a lot of great things planned this semester, and so be looking out for them. You can follow them on their Instagram at UTA NAACP for the flyers and the meetings and the events that they're going to be putting on. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you so
Ms.
much.
Manning, will you put that on our page, just so we'll have access and knowledge when they do fundraisers and stuff?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Yes, good idea. Thank you. Mr. Gardner, Political Action Chair, did you have anything to report?
At this time, the only thing I have to report is that the Political Action Committee will be planning a series of public service announcements in regards to redistricting via our YouTube page. And this event tonight was going to be start of a kickoff. We'll be talking about local redistricting, but this will be a series we plan on doing to the public. So after tonight, we'll have more information.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just kind of scanning. Mr. Vice President Braxton, do you have fundraising update?
Madam President, I don't have anything other than the committee is in the process of making plans. So sent something out to the committee members the other day, just trying to get some input on how we want to proceed. We do plan on having our annual gala in April, preferably the first weekend in April. So we're in the process now of planning that event. So just reaching out to the committee members and getting ideas on what we would like to hear or who we'd like to hear as our speaker this year. So just in the planning process. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that's all I see. Double checking here. Okay, I think so. So thank you for those reports. So I am going to introduce our topic for tonight and our moderator. We have a stand-in moderator, so she is getting on a different device, so I'm kind of stalling. But again, we're going to talk about local redistricting efforts. City of Arlington was strongly encouraged, forced to stand up a redistricting committee, a citizen-based redistricting committee. That effort was initiated by our LuLAC president, Luis Castillo. He felt it was important that this time around that the city have citizen input on redistricting and in the form of a committee. And so I supported him in his efforts to work with the city manager and city attorney's office to get a redistricting committee set up. They are using a consulting firm, and I'll let them talk about that. It's the same consulting firm they used 10 years ago to draw the lines for city council seats in Arlington. So you probably heard a whole boatload of information about state and federal redistricting, but you're not hearing a lot about local redistricting. So that's what this meeting is focusing on tonight. And we'll touch on state, the state lines. Mr. Gaines, our Texas NAACP Legal Redress Co-Chair, is on the call. He's also the Legal Redress Chair for the Fort Worth Tarrant County branch. He can talk about all of it, but we've got those players, those people that are on the City of Arlington Redistricting Committee that are representing the NAACP and LuLAC. So we've got some strong voices there, and I wanted the community to hear from those people tonight. In addition, we've got joining us Ms. Roxy Hall Williamson. Roxy is a fellow. She's with the Community Redistricting Organizations Working for Democracy organization. And so also joining us, I don't see her yet, is Stephanie. Wait, yeah, I do see her. I see Stephanie Swan, who's on my board, and I do see Stephanie Swanson. Stephanie Swanson is the issues chair of redistricting and census for the League of Women Voters in Texas. These are two very, very knowledgeable and powerful and vocal sisters who will educate us about redistricting and talk about the fight, the importance of local redistricting, and they'll talk about the fight statewide as well. So the state NAACP and Mr. Gaines can help me through this, offered branches assistance with local redistricting. And so we just had to submit a proposal and apply. And Gabe Reeves from our NAACP branch and LuLAC branch drafted our proposal, and we got it sent in to the state NAACP. And so we are the beneficiaries of this tremendous support that we're going to get from Roxy and Stephanie Swanson and the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. And so I'm going to let them talk about all of this and explain it and the value of it and the importance of local redistricting. And so Roxy and Stephanie, I think we need a redistricting 101, some of us do. I'll speak for myself, and then talk about the rest of it. So who's going to go first? Roxy, Stephanie?
Roxy, do you want to go over some of the background info?
Oh, there she is.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Apologies, I don't know, my laptop is having a moment. Good evening, I'm Roxy Hall Williamson. I am a member of the Galveston NAACP. I am also your crowd representative, as President Simmons just told you, with the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. I am so excited to be a part of this process. And I'm currently emailing myself the PowerPoint I have for you and see if I can do it on my other device. I'm getting my devices together. But in the interim, I'd love for Miss Stephanie to begin by telling you just some basics about the process. And after attending the City Hall meeting today, I have some notes. And after reviewing, the initial assessment that was presented today, Ms. Hillary Klein provided us with some notes about what she, just some thoughts that she had when she went through the original presentation that was presented today. So Ms. Swanson, if you could take it away and get us started.
Sure. So let me give you just a little bit of background info. So every 10 years, we have to redraw our election districts, everything from US Congress all the way down to local city councils and school boards. And the reason that we have to do that is to make sure that our election districts are equal in population size. And so at the meeting today earlier, the city announced the timeline for this. It looks like that you guys are going to have this process kicking off in December, if I remember correctly from the picture that Roxy sent. And that maps should be finished by February, which is a reasonable timeline. That's what we're seeing other jurisdictions provide as well, about 2 months. I know currently that you guys have 5 city council districts plus 3 at-large election seats. And I was very happy to see that 2 of your at-large election seats were held by women of color. So excited about that. I was like, oh, I wonder if they were able to like candidates of choice. And so you guys were, so I was happy to see that. I see that you guys also have 1 Latino city council member, I think in District 2. And then you also have another African-American city council member. And so what our job is going to be is to make sure that the city council members that you have in those single member districts, so place 2 and 5, I believe, we want to make sure that you guys maintain those seats going into this next round of redistricting. And this, of course, is also going to be based on that census data that just got delivered to the state. So I know for a fact that Arlington has become only more diverse since the last census. And the reason that I know that is you guys are possibly going to get a new coalition district at the state level for your House district. We have to tweak that district that the state drew for you guys. By the way, it's unacceptable. We'll have to go back and fix that. But I've seen the population growth in your area. So I'm confident that you guys most likely can hold on to those 2 current city council seats from those single member districts. So Roxy, did you get your presentation up yet? Or are you still emailing it to yourself?
I'm pulling it up now. I'm trying to anyway. I think I'm gonna have to go out and come back in and see if this camera will work.
Okay, well, I've got some, and then I'm gonna ask President Castillo and some of the others that are on the redistricting committee to jump in here, so they can talk about the current makeup of our council. But I actually attended today's afternoon session. I went specifically for redistricting, got there 5 minutes before it started, got up and left once it was finished. And so they're going to, there has been a definite population shift. It is more, Arlington's more minority. And I think the consultant said that talked mainly about districts 3 and 4, but said the entire city was going to have to be redistricted. So I think that's a good thing. You know, I'll let Luis maybe talk about the current makeup of the council. We do have the 2 at-large seats are held by African-American women who are progressives. The District 3 seat is held by an African-American woman who is not progressive at all. So I'll let President Castillo elaborate.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me on the panel, Lisa. My name is Luis Castillo. I'm the president of Arlington LuLAC Council 22-320. And I'm serving in the redistricting task force as a non-voting member, along with my colleague Marvin Stutton, who's representing the NAACP. Now, it's important to note that we can't talk about redistricting in the context of just the 5 single-member districts, even though the resolution that the council passed was to redistrict those 5 single-member districts. Under the legal standard or legal term totality of the circumstances, there's 8 council seats. The what I call the establishment or city hall wants us just to focus on the 5 single-member districts, which is the scope of the resolution for us to do. But we can't forget about the other 3. So my contention is that we need to discuss this conversation in the context of 8 single-member districts. So currently we have one purported Latino on the city council. Right now that he appointed a white lady to the task force. Now let me put a disclaimer here. I have the tendency to talk about race, and I don't talk about it for the purpose of being ugly. I talk about it because it's a matter of fact, and I think that it's important to note that the current system that we have right now, the 5 single-member districts and the 3, came about through a white privilege initiative back before 1993, when this system was put into place because the voters voted on a referendum, because the city council back then, back in 1992, were 8 white individuals and a black mayor. They came to a compromise because there were some people, community members in the East Arlington, pushing for single-member districts. As a compromise, they said we'll have a 5-3. And now that was an accommodation because everybody back then in 1992, most of them lived in the same part of town. So they didn't want to pit one council member against another because they lived in the same neighborhood. So they came up with this clever idea of having 3 at large and 5 single-member districts. And that's how we got stuck with it. But the thing is that if you look at it, historically, those 3 at large live in the same part of town. So, for example, I live in District 3, and I have 1 council member, single-member district member, and in theory, I got 3 more at large. However, under the notion of neighborhood representation, I've never had another council member live in my district or in my neighborhood. They all live north or west of Arlington. So what I'm saying is that we need to be mindful that the current system is against the one man, one vote legal principle. You have, for example, if you look at District 1, which is in North Arlington, or District 4, which is in West Arlington, they have actually, they could have possibly all 4 council members representing the area because the 3 at large may live there. Now, historically, I think recently it changed, but historically, for the most part, they all live either North or West Arlington. So those areas get more representation in the council by the fact that those council members, the at large, live there. Now, in theory, I mean, in practice, they're voted at large. I mean, everybody votes for them, and when we all have 3 additional council members besides our single member district. But in practice, they don't live in the whole city. They have to live in a neighborhood. So this thing about neighborhood representation goes down the drain because those council members at large live in basically the same neighborhood. It's under
Mr.
the
Castillo,
yes.
please forgive me for interrupting you. Please forgive me. Wow. I would like to, you think you could help me like put what you're saying into a note form so I can include that in my report for your area?
Well, you know,
because that's a lot.
I know. It's being recorded. I understand.
But I need it. Oh, that's right. I can go back and take
It's
notes.
being recorded. But
if you don't mind, I have a presentation ready for you. May I?
Yes. You know, and I think it's important to understand the background because
yes,
you know
it is
because you know the current system was put in place as you know by a white privileged group of people, and they want to keep it. They want to maintain it. Now, to me, it's a relic of racism. Back in 1992, we had people still celebrating the Confederacy. We had Confederate flags flying, commemorating Confederate heroes, and we had large members, and you know, so we still have that, and that's what they want to keep the status quo because it's the political power that is very possible in the current system to have all four members to have 4 members live in the same block.
Yeah,
it's very possible.
We got you, Louise.
Can I interject? Can I interject something? This is Deborah.
Hey,
what we
Deborah.
need to do is change the city charter. Without changing the city charter, we are stuck with 5 single districts and 3 at-large districts. So what we need to do is change the charter.
Yes, correct, Deborah. Correct. But the first step is for the redistricting committee, the task force, to drop the maps. And then the city council puts it on a referendum under the local government code for the voters to vote on it.
Let me interject really quick. You can also bring a lawsuit to challenge those at-large seats.
Yes, true.
Right.
True.
Have you guys thought about doing that? And I was wondering if you could share the history if you had tried to do that, because I know that there have been similar attempts across the state. And I know that DFW has so many at-large election systems, I don't even know where to begin about challenging them in court. But if we have a very active group here that is interested in doing that, that's a conversation that would need to have at some point.
Well, if we remember when George Floyd was killed, there's a whole lot of nationwide about dismantling white institutional, institutions and practices. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon and said they acknowledge, we accept, we need to change this. Well, at-large systems historically has been in place in the South to dilute minority voting. So the question is, why do we still have these 3 at-large members here in Arlington? It's a relic from racism institutions from the past. So the question is, and I know that the scope is just 5 single member districts, but we can't disregard the totality of the circumstances and discuss the whole thing and change it. We'd rather have the city council take the initiative. Yes, sir.
Okay, I got you, and we're gonna talk about that a little later. But right now, can we let the lady go with the PowerPoint, please?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Right,
I'm sorry. I have a wealth of information, but go ahead.
All right, thank you. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, where was I?
We'll come back to you, Louise.
Okay, everyone, good evening. If you could share your screen, Miss Simmons, I think you can let me in to show this. And if not, it's really brief. The presentation I have for you is just a summary of what we are going to talk about and how the information we can use to move forward and create your plan. Sort of, I guess we might as well say plan of attack. Ms. Louise put it out there. There's a history of discrimination. We know that we've got to be vigilant about just keeping our eye on what they're doing. And let me,
Damon, Stephanie, are y'all sharing the screen? Because I can't do it, so.
I don't have the,
Share
I
a
don't have,
screen now.
okay, cool. Well, I will just go through it really quickly if you don't mind. We have our excuse me, our redistricting advocacy program that the NAACP is really trying to emphasize throughout the state. For Arlington, we have Mr. Jesse Gaines, Attorney Gaines on the call. We have President Elisa Simmons, Mr. Marvin Sutton, Mr. Gabe Reeves, Ms. Deborah Spell, and myself. And I come with Stephanie and the team behind me, which we will get into at another meeting, because hopefully I will have the whole team on when we meet again. Your proposed dates, your timeline for Arlington. The first proposed public hearing will be December 7th. The second public hearing will be December 14th. The recommended latest day, final map adoption date is January the 11th.
Hold on,
First-
Roxy.
I'm sorry,
Sorry
am I
to
going too
interrupt.
fast?
Can you share your screen? They're saying you have access to share
Oh,
your screen.
cool. Let's see. Hold on.
If not, I've sent it to Stephanie.
Okay.
I sent the presentation to Stephanie. So I don't know whether.
This is different, Deborah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes, sorry. And I don't see.
Miss Roxy, there's a green button on the bottom of your screen that says share
Please
screen.
share a screen.
We can hear-
Hold on. I'm on my iPad and I'm trying to maneuver. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Nope, that's my camera. I apologize, guys, for the technical. I had it all set up on the laptop earlier and it's not cooperating with me. Oh, I see it. Ah, there we go. Screen.
Okay, I think we got it now.
Awesome sauce. Here we go. Let's see if I can pull it up again. Can you see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And as you can see, this is your proposed timeline. Like I said, December 7th is the first proposed public hearing. And note the word proposed, because what we've been seeing throughout the state is they're setting hearings and they're moving them at the last minute. Like we're all scrambling tonight to get our testimonies ready for in the morning because the congressional maps dropped and we had 24 hours to pull it together. So you want to stay on top of those dates. And where was I? And the first day to file for a place on the ballot and last day to order elections for May 2022 is February 18th. And those plans must be adopted more than 3 months prior to election day. And that's according to the Texas election code. Currently, this is the current map as of the 2010 census. And I will be very interested to see how they really want to, because I think they proposed something, but I don't think they've released it yet. I don't see it in a presentation that the young man presented today. So I think we're still good on that. The presentation today was presented by this gentleman, Mr. Pullum, with this law firm. And I put the link, even though it doesn't, I don't think it, oh, will it work? Let's see. Because I wonder if it worked. Ah, and here's what he presented today. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this was his initial assessment. So quickly, I will run through it with you. This is the attorney that presented today, Mr. Pullum. And you see his credentials there. Municipal attorney, Texas Southern University, JD, University of Houston, BS, member, Texas City Attorneys Association, and he served as a presiding judge in Harris County elections. Today's agenda, he gave the overview of what is an initial assessment, the overview of the initial assessment, resolutions addressing redistricting criteria and citizen maps, that's why today was so important. And I'm glad President Simmons was able to be there in person, because they saw that we at least had a representative of the NAACP on deck to see what they were presenting. And Ms. Deborah just mentioned the city charter. So yes, you would begin if you want to make changes with the city charter, because currently this is what you have to work with. And to reiterate what was already said, the elective officers of the city shall consist of a mayor and 8 council members, 1 council member to be elected by each of the 5 single member districts, and 3 to be elected for at-large districts. And that this map is pretty much the one that I had in my presentation. This is your population data, your census data. In 2010, you see you were at 365,438. For 2020, it was reported 394,266, which is a 7.89% increase. And here are how those demographics lay out as of 2020. And I'll let you guys have a moment to look at that. That's a lot. And if you note, each of the above is one category only. For example, white means white, non-Hispanic, Hispanic, Black, non-Hispanic, and so on. This is what they say is Arlington's initial big picture. With this population, your ideal district size is 78,853 per single member district. And it cannot have a total maximum deviation of more than 10%. And I think right now, one of the districts, I want to say, I can't remember which one right now, but I think one of the districts.
District 4 is the one that's most underpopulated.
3 or 4.
Right.
District
they have
3 is the
one
most
that's
overpopulated.
Right. You guys already know. So that's
Say
what
that
I-
again, Gabe. Gabe, will you repeat that?
Yeah, District 3 is has about 4,000 more than the target number, and then District 4 has about 5,000 less than the target number.
And
You
here's
got it right
that
in front of you now. There it is.
Here's that slide for that. So
So
our
what
job
does that mean exactly?
So basically, it's going to come down to that they're going to be needing to pull from District 3 to add to other districts, specifically 4 probably, since it's underpopulated. So getting to that target number, even division total population of the city divided by 5. But I mean, we don't have to take from 3 to give to 4. It could be that 3 needs to maybe go a little more to 5 to keep East Arlington districts, and 4 can take from the one above it, meaning maybe more of the West Arlington part of 5 or other places. The total deviation means that right now the smallest district, being District 4, is 6% under the target, and the largest district is 5 over the target. So the total deviation is over 12, right? If you
Right.
add those two numbers together. So that means there definitely has to be redistricting going by those guidelines of a target of 10% total deviation.
Exactly. Thank you. That's it. And again, same numbers you just saw on the other chart, just put in a different format. And that's the math that was just explained. The total population divided by the districts. It gives you your total number. And like I said, District 3 is the largest, while District 4 is the smallest. And what now? We redistrict. So your current total population is 12.55%, and it's not within the maximum 10%. So we redistrict. And this is the process, the next steps. The first two have been X'd out because that has been done already. So this is what's coming next. They established the criteria, guidelines, policies, and timeline, which we mentioned earlier. And it will be presented as resolutions for adoption by council. Compile initial preferences of council and staff, determine approach to civic engagement, commence map drawing, civic engagement again, which those are the public hearings I was mentioning to you earlier, and the possible plans. Illustrative maps are internal versions intended for informal feedback. Draft maps are public versions for which public comments are solicited. Citizen maps are submitted by outside parties for public comment and city consideration. Adoption of new plan by city council, and then the final report to city council. Your redistricting criteria resolution. Identifiable geographic boundaries should be followed. Communities of interest should be maintained. Avoid splitting neighborhoods. Composed of whole voting districts when possible and practical, meaning you don't want to split voting districts. Configured so they are relatively equal in total population. And this is, your map. Compact and composed of contiguous territory. Preservation of incumbent constituency relations by recognition of the residents of incumbents. Not crack or pack minority voters. Compose whole census block groups or blocks within acceptable total maximum deviation. Narrowly tailor the plan to comply with the Voting Rights Act. Guidelines for citizen map submissions. Proposed maps submitted by members of the public must be submitted in writing, legible, show the total population and voting age population for Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and white/other for each proposed city council district, be submitted by the established deadlines, redistrict the entire city, not just the district they care most about, and conform to the criteria. Civic engagement. Ms. Steph, are you still on the line?
I am, yeah.
I would like to kind of not really get into this slide. Could you possibly give an overview of how we see the civic engagement and how sort of like the example that we're doing with Tyler, how we can get Arlington on that same, what do I want to say, those same parameters with the civic engagement?
Yeah, so go back up to the proposed criteria really quick and we'll start there. And so what we're doing for go up one more, what we're doing for other jurisdictions across the state that we're working in, and this is what we're also doing at the state level as well, is we are critiquing the criteria and process that the jurisdiction is using. And so it's great that they've shared this with you. And I'm I'm glad that the attorney went to Texas Southern, because I feel like we'll have an ally there to work with. But I already see a few problems with this. And this is probably the city telling the attorney what to include for the criteria. So this preservation of incumbency, that's going to be problematic. So, and there's some other things in here that we can shape up and package a little better to comply a little more with the law. And so what we're doing in other locations is we're coming up with our list of recommendations in order to tweak this plan a bit. And then we take this letter that we send in and we're going to circulate it in the community to get sign on. And that's how you kind of build that public outreach campaign across the state, or not the state. That's what we did at the state level. So in this case, it would be across the city. And what we definitely want to do is reach out to organizations that represent communities of color to sign on to the letter and participate in this whole process. So already tonight, it's great. We already have the NAACP, we have LuLAC. Hopefully we can reach outside as well and find some other organizations in the community from across the community to participate. So that's the starting point. You start with this initial sign-on letter. You get folks in the community up to speed with what they're signing on to, and then you send that in. And then from there, the next step would be to hold just an an educational event, a Redistricting 101, basically, to get some of the community members up to speed with what to expect during the redistricting process. And then from there, we plan to do a little more tailored look at the community and start doing community of interest mapping, specifically with community leaders. And so I'll give you an example in Hays County. Hays County, there's a very large Latinx community that has grown even more since the last decade, over this past decade down there. And so we reached out to folks on the east side of the county. We have been doing community of interest mapping with folks from the Latinx community as well as the Black community down there. But it's folks like old city council members, members that represent community. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background and it's distracting me. So members that are really engaged in the community down there. So another one was from Centro, which is the local community civics club for that area. It's not a club, but it's an organization for the area. These folks really know the community, is what I'm trying to say. They have lived there since they were born. Their family lived there before that. They're very much in tune and aware of not only the history of the community and how it's developed, but also about the current existing problems. And so that's the stuff that we want to start documenting and putting like an actual bound on some of these areas, because that's what eventually you need to do, is get this info about the community onto a map. And then you write a description. So you draw your area on a map. This is my community. And then you start describing the history, the current problems that you're experiencing, so on and so forth. And that's what we refer to as a community of interest map. And from there, we can use that community of interest map to uphold districts that comply with the Voting Rights Act. So go down to that next step, or sorry, that next slide, Roxy. This is the part where we need to start negotiating with the attorney and city council. So not only do we want to be able to submit our own district maps, but we want to definitely be able to submit community of interest maps for them to consider as well. And then it's going to be up to us to decide if we want to submit an alternative plan. And it bothers me that they're requiring us to draw districts across the entire city because we don't live in parts of the city. And so it's not really appropriate for us to draw the entire city, but we'll have to figure out a way around that doesn't upset people too much if we do have to draw other districts. But that will have to occur as a conversation amongst this entire group. So folks are on the same page, and it's very important that all of this is discussed thoroughly as a group as much as possible, so we can build consensus across the group, support, hopefully. Maybe we can't always agree with the same plan, but maybe we can get somewhere close. So this is a plan that we are trying to use in other areas across the state. And so far, it's working pretty well in Hayes County. But as we develop this conversation and relationship with the city attorney and with the city, as well as this process unfolds, we should also be able to identify certain procedures or problems that might occur. And then we'll have more advocacy devoted around that. We'll have to write a letter describing why this decision that they're making does not comply with the law, so on and so forth. So it really will be a back and forth throughout this entire process. We will need as many folks as possible involved and to be a part of it in order to be effective.
May I interject? I think it is practical that we do be involved in drawing the entire map, because the map is irregular. There needs to be a lot of changes within the map itself. I spoke with the city attorney that's also working with us on this project. And I had asked him about the shapefile from 2010 of how they had actually drawn the map for that we're currently under. It wasn't, he said it wasn't available. But as far as Mr. Pullum is not the lead attorney on this particular project. Anthony Borges of the Borges law firm is actually the lead on this, and he has worked on this. He has worked on our redistricting program for the past 3 times, 30 years. So it's nothing new to him. Now, I also asked the city attorney regarding participation and of other civic engagement and plus citizen engagement regarding information on Nextdoor and watch groups. And he has sent me the whole breakdown for every district's Nextdoor and watch group, so that we can look at that and help to also look at the maps. The police resource area is also an important thing to look at, how they have the districts, and then what they call within the district, this police resource area. So we have a wealth of information that we can use to redraw maps that are citizen committee, citizen and community of interest, as well as neighborhood of interest. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'd like to find out more about what happened in 2011. I know that you guys mentioned that it sounds like you don't have a candidate of choice for one of your city council districts, and that you're not happy with two.
Well, actually more.
I know that you have 2 at-large seats. And
3 at-large seats. And we have 3 at-large seats, and 2 are representative by minorities.
Right, so there are 2 women of color that are on the at-large seats, which means that it might be difficult to actually challenge that in court if those 2 seats are performing to elect candidates of choice. But for your single member districts, there were, and I can't remember the numbers on the districts, please forgive me, but I remember seeing there were 2.
It's actually District 2 has a Hispanic male. District 3 has a female Black, but neither one of these particular individuals are progressive.
That makes a difference.
That's what we need to go back and look at to see what happened in 2011, because you guys obviously have a need to be able to have districts that will elect candidates of choice. And if that's not happening right now, we don't want to recreate the maps that they have drawn. And we need to find out a little more about what happened in 2011 to make sure we are prepared to enter this next round of redistricting and not repeat the same mistakes that we saw back in 2011. So we might need to do
Yeah, well, I think we
Or-
need to go back to Mr. Borwes and get that information from how they decided to draw the map in 2011.
Well, and
Because-
for those of us that were, I mean, I know Deborah was involved back in 2011 when we were doing all that kind of lobbying the city, but for like as Luis pointed out, 30 years ago when we did the single member districts for the first time, it was all incumbent protection plan for why the lines themselves got drawn, and that's why District 5, that was supposed to be an East Arlington district and is the only city council district that represents that part of town, got drawn all the way over to Pantego or Bowen Road at that time. It's now represented by somebody who doesn't live so far to the west, but it's still represented by someone who lives more in West Arlington than East Arlington. These the argument they often use is that there is a neighborhood organization that actually represents several different neighborhoods that crosses
Right.
over Cooper Street. With Cooper Street's kind of the natural east-west boundary. People that live on west side of Cooper Street say they live in West Arlington. People that live on east side of Cooper Street say they live in East Arlington. And you break down communities, minority communities, Title I schools, everything gets divided by Cooper Street. And for districts to kind of go all the way across one side or the other really doesn't show for communities of interest that way. And the argument they used in 2011 for why District 5 should cross that way is that neighborhood organization, it was several different neighborhoods that came together for, natural gas drilling, oil well drilling, 10, 15 years ago. They crossed Cooper Street. So, and if that's one of the criteria they're using, then we could use Davis Street or something to kind of rein it in a little bit for not being so far west as District 5 currently is. District 5 really should be something that represents more of that east side of town. Could go a little further north, could go a little further south, take out some of District 3, but District 5 is the one that originally 30 years ago, like Luis was saying, lobbied for having single member districts, and District 5 and the people who live in that East Arlington district still don't have representation.
Right.
Can I interject something real
Right.
quick
And
here?
yeah, go ahead.
Uh,
Louis.
Yes. If you look at the present district maps for Arlington, most, if not all of the districts take more of a horizontal
South.
configuration, except, a vertical configuration, except District 5. District 5 takes a horizontal configuration. That's the only district that's shaped that way. And the other ones are more of a north and south shape, and like Gabe was saying, that there's no community of interest between East Arlington and West Arlington,
Right.
and that's one of the areas that needs to be changed and make District 5 more of a Latino friendly district, because most Latinos live in there.
Right. Because
Louise,
District 5,
Louise,
because
give-
District 5 is a very irregularly drawn district, because it goes all the way, it goes partially down 360, which that should be included in District 3, or partially in District
Or
one.
District 5 should go a little further south, maybe to
Right.
closer to 20.
Right.
Now, and
Right.
originally that was because, we had Paula Pearson living in that area, and that was district was
Right.
drawn for her, and she lived more in West Arlington, but they drew that district for Paula.
Right. And so we need to look at redrawing the districts, period, not just 3 and 4, because,
Well, it sounds like.
But
none
as
of
Luis
this
was saying, the emphasis should be on orienting the districts more east and west, so the east has more of its own representation.
This is also
Yeah.
really going to rely heavily on demographics and whether or not these districts are going to perform to elect a candidate of choice. And so Roxy and I can start doing that demographic breakdown, and the districts might change pretty substantially based on where that demographic growth has been. And we might be able to do that as a starting point for some of this work. So we know where possibly we can draw districts that would perform to elect a candidate of choice. And then we can go back and tailor it a bit to community input. I think that might be a better starting point, though, because as of right now, it sounds like you guys don't have any districts currently electing a candidate of choice in those 5 single-member districts. Is that right?
yes,
Correct.
yes.
And if I may add something else here real quick, is that back in 2011, the city was under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act review by the
Right.
Justice Department. This year, it doesn't have to have a Section 5 review. Now, my question to you all is, are you familiar with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act? Because under Section 2, if you look at the Justice Department website, .gov, there's a whole bunch of cases that were challenged under Section 2, and most of them deal with at-large council districts or at-large, at-large systems. Section 2, and I don't know whether you all are acquainted with that, but maybe you should do some reading on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and go and visit the justice.gov website, the voting rights section, and you'll see that there's a lot of cases that were challenged and they won to overturn the at-large districts.
The problem is right now, though, so we are familiar with Section 2, and that's what we're going to be using to guide us when we redistrict these and redraw these 5 single-member districts, because we want to ultimately be able to draw something that we can uphold in court if need be. And so that's our goal, is to draw districts that are going to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. However, with your at-large election system, that's going to require an actual attorney to be present, because you guys currently are electing 2 women of color in those at-large seats. And so that's going to hurt your case a little bit. And you need an attorney, because I don't know how far back, how long of a historical perspective you need to take into consideration for those 3 at-large seats. And that's something an attorney can tell you. I don't have that legal expertise. Jesse's
And I was just about to ask Mr. Gaines to jump in here.
But if I may say, those 2 minority candidates or representatives, that's recent history. We go back to 1992 up, it's more predominantly white candidates. Recently, and I'm pretty sure that maybe this was by design, that the establishment supported the Black candidates to prepare for this. I wouldn't put it past them, but that's recent history. This, what we have, the 2 women of color there, that's recent. But historically, in the context of holistically speaking, it's heavily favored for whites.
Okay, he's absolutely right. I'm going to jump in here and say this because I'm going to back him up. There's very recent history. What district does Ruby represent? Is it District
7 or 8? 7. I think it's 7.
7. Okay, so the African-American woman that got elected during the 2020 election cycle, it's because we credit her win to the municipal election being moved to November. Okay, so and I tell her all the time, this is not, not an affront. It's unbelievable that she beat the establishment candidate. And so it really is. And it's recent history, not really sure if it will happen again for that seat. In Arlington, unfortunately, you have to be blessed by the establishment to be elected. I cannot run as well known as my name is. I cannot run for city council and win. And I think a lot of people know me in this city, unless I am so blessed by the establishment. I hate to say it, that's just how it is here in Arlington. It's the truth. So will Councilwoman Woolridge win her city council seat again with the May election at large? You
don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know.
You don't know. It's going to be tough. It's not. It won't be easy for her.
No, but she's out there doing a lot of good things. She's got a great name recognition, so she does have a chance. She does have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
But I'm not talking about her specifically. If it were me, if it were you, if it were Gabe or Luis running in that at-large seat, if it were a minority, not Ruby, but if it were a minority, if we were not deemed the establishment candidate, then we likely wouldn't. wouldn't.
Well, just like in District 3, she was the person that actually won in the runoff, is the establishment candidate. She's not the minority candidate. It's because uneducated minorities didn't know the facts.
So what she's saying, Roxy and Stephanie, is that the councilwoman representing District 3 is an African-American female. She was recently elected in May. Just to be straight, she's the third vice president of the Arlington Republican Club, but she looks like me. Okay, so.
And she had her picture post. She had a picture on her, on all of her signs.
So we're a little different here in Arlington. So we've got 3 African-American women on council, and you know, you might say this is going to be a hard case to make, and I guess it will be a hard case to make. Mr. Gaines is familiar with Arlington redistricting. He can talk to you about that, Mr. Gaines.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like Galveston to me.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely correct. The at-large system was put in Arlington for the reasons and the purposes that were just articulated. However, going to court on a Section 2 violation for at-large elections present, where you have a bifurcated system, we worked to the school district in Fort Worth had a 7-2 plan that it took us 30 years to get rid of it. So these things are long-term. Section 2 cases in Arlington would have to be filed in the Northern District of Texas. The Northern District of Texas has some of the most hostile Section 2 judges in the whole country. It is mostly your judge at the beginning that gives you that edge as to what you have. So we have to always remember that, what district that we're in. There's a reason we don't file any NAACP voting rights suit in the Northern District of Texas, because we know the hostility to the kinds of cases that we bring. So that's all I have. Thank you.
If I may add something, that have anybody contemplated contacting the U.S. Justice Department and request them to present our argument and have them send a notice letter to the city? Does anybody contemplate that? Because sometimes they intervene on behalf of. Pardon me?
Luis, not at this
Yeah.
time, because right now what we're trying to do is we want to educate people about what redistricting is. And y'all have given a lot of history, but my thing is, we're here, but we're talking to people who are not part of organizations, and we're got to. So I hope that we can kind of focus on what it is that we need them to do in these next few months and what that plan is, because as he said, single member district, that's a big fight, and that's really not the purpose of this meeting. We're talking about redistricting 101 and getting people to be able to understand. And so I know it might be a little redirection, but can we please kind of focus on what do people need to know and what people need to do? Thank you.
Okay, but I want Mr. Gaines, thank you, Mr. Second Vice President. I want Mr. Gaines to answer Luis's question, because I do think it was valid, and then we can redirect to more basic.
I would think that as a long-term policy, that the Arlington NAACP might want to construct some kind of a letter to the Justice Department. I do not think the Justice Department at the moment, they're more concerned with the voting ID type cases. They're more concerned with some of the other issues that are happening now. This will not be at the top of their list. However, it is something that we need to have a meeting not only with the get the Justice Department to do, but to have our elected officials, like we have a congressperson from this area, get the congressperson to write a letter in support of it, because these things are political. But I'm certainly not, I would agree with the president and everybody else, that this is not what we're pressing for right today. We're trying to get this issue dealt with, because trying to get rid of an at-large system, a bifurcated at-large system, the long-term process. Dallas It took them 12 years to get rid of their system. And they had, the judges were not as hostile then. And so it's a long-term fight, not something.
Well, never mind.
Ladies,
Well,
will y'all
that was,
finish with
Okay,
your,
Roxy.
will y'all finish with your, Roxy, will
I
y'all
was about
finish?
to say, that was the end of the presentation. This was the discussion portion. And what I wanted to discuss, well, I had mentioned to President Simmons, now that we have the initial assessment, our next meeting, and I'm proposing a couple of agenda items, we need to discuss our community engagement. What is that going to look like for your area? What other organizations besides who we have already can we pull into the collective? And thirdly, as we sit down and I go through my team with the maps, you guys really take some time and consider, because I heard a lot tonight, consider how we can put that in a narrative that we can build talking points from, and also make our map look like what your words are saying, if that makes sense, right? We want our map to be a visual expression of everything that I heard tonight. What would be your ideal map? What would it look like? What would it sound like in the narrative? And it's my job to work with the team to make the map express that as a map. And that's all I had for tonight.
Okay. Gabe, I want you to kind of give a Arlington Redistricting 101 wrap up. And in the meantime, for folks that have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll answer your questions. They don't have to be high level. Trust me, I'm not high level with redistricting. I've learned a lot. Recently, I learn more every day. I learned some stuff at today's city council meeting. But if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat.
And one more thing, President Simmons. And I do have some more specific slides for the Redistricting 101. And I was hoping we could get into those particulars at the next meeting as well, discussing the pre-clearance, how that applies, and moving forward with that narrative for you guys. Thank you.
And then as far as like Arlington Redistricting 101, we covered a lot of the kind of the history of it. We're just kind of talking about what we've already gone over. I mean, but where Arlington is right now, we're at 61% people of color. So we have a good case to show, even though that we have had some recent victories, whether they were for the flukes of COVID or the kind of voter turnout issues, we still should have a council that reflects that our city is now at 61% people of color. And the fact that the current maps is drawn were more for incumbent protection than they were for actually keeping together communities of interest. Now, as far as even like the last time we worked together as LuLAC and NAACP working with the city, we didn't have this city redistricting task force. That's a new thing. We do have, like we kind of talked about earlier with Marvin Sutton, former councilmember Sutton, and Luis Castillo, president of LuLAC, on there as ex officio members without a vote, but our two at-large African-American women who are on council did appoint me and Deborah to the committee, and we have a vote there as well. So there are four of us sitting in the meeting, four of us, and then two of us that have a voting role there as well. Tonight, they did have a city council meeting to approve those criteria and guidelines. And so even though the first reading of the new description of the maps and voting, second reading and voting of that doesn't happen until December, the redistricting process should be considered that it's starting right now, as the law firm that Bojorquez represents will be starting to develop the maps, and our redistricting task force will be meeting at least once a month, and we're hoping that we have a little more often meetings, a little more input than that. We have one later this month and one early in November. Now, those are public meetings, so if we can push that information out to the public and have NAACP members, LuLAC members come to those meetings. Now, they are like 4 in the afternoon at City Hall, but they are open to the public and take public testimony, or public people give public input at those meetings too. So we have some opportunities there to have community members speak to not only the Redistricting Task Force, but the city attorneys are present, and the attorneys that are drawing the maps present as well. So if we can kind of maybe have a good, maybe a good idea to have a strategy of speaking specifically to certain areas of town that need to be kept together, you know, having those narratives ready to address communities of interest that we need to have more representation for. The argument that we kind of have to go against that both the city council has been saying for years about their hybrid system is that they like, and even Bojorquez said this the other day, is that with the current system, they have the ability to vote for a majority of council or lobby a majority of council. But while we don't have the opportunity right now to change the city charter and have redistricting all 8 seats, we do have the opportunity to say that with the current situation that we have, the hybrid system, because of that, people that live in this donut of East Arlington don't have any representation. They can easily draw a line saying, well, with the at-large seats and where the current lines are drawn, putting pins of the residencies of all our council members, we can show that there are areas of town that have not had representation for quite a while, and whether that be from incumbent protection or whatever argument that the council and the attorneys with the Bojorquez firm use as their arguments for why districts need to be drawn that way. There is the greatest growth is not only been in the Hispanic and African American communities, but it is in that specific area of town there east of Cooper Street, mostly southeast. Like we said, District 3 being the southeast district. So with that opportunity of growth, there's enough Hispanic and Black minority opportunity areas of town to draw at least 2 districts that we can have places where we can elect people.
I would like
Can I add something?
I would like to add that what the council voted on today as far as the guidelines and the requirements for presentation for redistricting the maps and any public input was all already presented by the law firm, and all the members of the task force. All we did was vote on it. There was a bit of discussion, and when all we did was just vote on it.
That's a damn problem to me.
Yes.
So if you have,
there wasn't any input on anything in before, and I'm thankful that Louise and Marvin and Gabe had previously worked on redistricting, and they know the questions and the history of what's going on in Arlington, that they can check the lawyers and the law firm. Although I'm engaged in redistricting in that process, I'm relatively new to the game of redistricting. So we have to be alert to what is going on, and that's going to take all of us. And I would like to see, another minority group. I'm going to ask because we have a lot of Muslims that are also in this area, and I'm going to ask the Muslim groups to also get some input and work with us as well. We have a large number of other ethnicities, but LuLAC and NAACP is, always the front runner. We're always the torch bearers.
well, see, I called
let me add
Deborah.
something, Alicia, can I
I'm
add
going to let
something?
you go, Louise, but I called Deborah today and said, and asked, did y'all did y'all give input on all of this stuff that the Borquez firm presented today? Because I know that the task force has only had 2 meetings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
when the chairwoman got up and she said, this is, you know, the lawyer is going to, the firm is going to present our recommendation, whatever. And I'm like, well, Gabe didn't tell me that. And Marvin didn't say that. And Luis and Deborah didn't say that. So I was wondering if you all had input, but I'm going to toss it to you, Luis.
Yes, yes. It's a rubber stamp process, Alicia. That's what it is. And now let's take note of this. We're 61% people of color here in the community. There's 9 voting members in the task force. 4 of them are white. The city attorney that's overseeing that task force is white. The community affairs director who's over that task force is white. The city manager is white. The mayor is white. There's too much whiteness, you know. So it's being driven by whiteness.
And
Right.
then
And
you got
who,
then you got the LuLAC, the LuLAC dedicated seat and the NAACP dedicated seat without
and
voting.
that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. And you look at which council members selected the people to participate. You have one that's a former district director for a very right-wing state senator. And and then you look at some of the other people, and you know, we're like outnumbered.
Oh yeah.
Miss Stephanie had a question in the chat box. That's all I was trying to get you.
Okay. Stephanie Swan, let's see, I think. Luis, the question is, what does it take to change the city charter?
It's governed by the Texas Local Government Code, and there's 2 ways of doing it. Either the city council can take a vote and put it on the ballot for the voters to vote on it, or the citizens present a petition. You know, the current hybrid system that we have, the 5-3, that was done via the council. The city council put that initiative by a vote on the ballot. So there's basically two ways, or a court order. That's the third option. So it could be the city council can put it in the ballot and let the voters decide and be supportive of the initiative, or citizens group can submit a petition.
Like we did for term limits.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Yeah. And that's going to be the only way this change, that we're going to be able to make it a ballot initiative if we do a petition.
Well, but my concern is, and I don't know if you guys have catch on to this, is that even though we have diversity in the city council, my contention is that they're being ill-advised by staff who are predominantly white. You know, the city of Arlington, you know, staff 60% white. The upper management staff is 60% white. You know, and they're the ones advising the city council. And we can't expect the city council to be experts in everything. They rely on city management staff advice. And by that advice, I think it's been ill-advised to the city council that just focus on the single member districts and not on the total. You know, that's my contention.
Okay. All right. Agreed. Anybody else have any questions? I do. I have a couple of questions. They might be like low level, but I'm just gonna throw them out there. Okay. Mr. Gaines, is he still there? Can you, Mr. Gaines, can you define cracking and packing?
Cracking and packing. I know it sounds like a song. Cracking is when you take the minority community, you take a African American or Hispanic community, and you spread the numbers into several districts where they are dispersed among 3 or 4 districts. Therefore, they have no influence in either district. Packing It's when you go up and down the street to find every Black or Hispanic house, you crawl it all into one district. So you have a district that's 98% Hispanic, Black. You have packed this district. So therefore, you got all packed into one, and they have no influence anywhere else. That's just a simple explanation of
The
packing.
cracking is just division. It's just dividing
Right.
up so that you have no representation, no voice. That's what cracking is.
Right. Yeah.
The surgical maneuver.
Got it. And I think
Surgical
that's
precision,
what they're
that's
doing with, I hate to go to the state thing. Is that kind of what they're doing with House District 92? Is that a pact?
That's just 92.
It could be just a reorganization, but what they're doing, I would say, Senate District 10. That is what is really
cracked.
Yes.
Right. Crack, right. Not only it's cracked, but they are very sensitive. It's a very deliberate game where they sent us down to Palo Pinto County with 2.32% Black, Callahan County 1% Black, Parker County 1.8% Black, Johnson County 2.5% Black, Brown County 4.0 Black, Stevens County 2.92 Black, Jacksonville County 0.48 Black. Now I've worked in all those counties early in my career. And I'm certainly not, we're not have no hostility toward anybody as we as a people, but we have nothing in common with the kind of issues that they face out there. We deal with schools, transportation, Interstate 20 is clogged up from time to time. Interstate 30 is clogged up. All the issues that we deal with, they don't have those problems. I mean, you can get from the one end of those places in 1 second. There are no lights out there. No, so the issues are entirely different than this. So you're right.
Okay, and compare how they've cracked Senate District 10 to what it currently is right now.
Right. Right. Senate District 10 will be considered a performing coalition district at present. It is a coalition performing district. And they have now, and they use this thing of, this is what they use, so we'll know. There's a case called Rocho versus Common Cause, decided in 2020 by the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court said that partisan gerrymandering was okay. It's okay to do partisan gerrymandering. So what they're doing is they claim partisan gerrymandering, and they claim they don't know who lives where. They just know they look at Republicans and Democrats. Now, it doesn't take a scientist to know where we live. I mean, it doesn't take an expert to know all that. So they're saying they don't look at any shading in the maps and all that, but we know that that's not so. So that is the great burden that we're going to have to overcome at the courthouse. Those kind of things.
And
clearly, yes, go ahead.
Senate District 10 currently geographically is Arlington,
Compact.
Fort Worth. It's suburban cities.
Right, and they send that arm up in the South Lake or wherever it goes up there north, Collegeville, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Right, Collegeville, okay.
Yeah.
And but it's basically an urban district with urban problems. We all have those same urban problems that we're all experiencing. So,
Right.
but anyway, and remember everybody that the last redistricting cycle, they did the same thing. Their first out of the gate was to change things. So remember the last time we had the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, not declared unconstitutional until 2013. First decision that we got was for 2013. So this time we're going to have to operate with do so. It's anybody's guess.
The redistricting House redistricting hearing is tomorrow morning, beginning at 10 o'clock. We only had a 24-hour notice for that. You have to register by 10 o'clock tonight so that you can testify. Even you can do it online, and you can do a written testimony as well. But you need to fill out that affirmation, which is very important. The Senate hearing was yesterday, which didn't allow much time as well. I've testified virtually and in person in Austin on these at these hearings. Although I think it's very important that we all express our disgust at these maps that are so horrendous. Although, and what I told them when I testified in Austin, that, it's just going to lead to litigation as usual, but they rather spend taxpayer money to litigate rather than to do the correct thing. It's all about a power grab for the administration of office. They care nothing about what the people want and who, like 95% of the population growth within Texas within the last 10 years was minorities, mainly Hispanics. But yet they're going to give Austin seats, a new senator, but nothing down in South Texas where the growth is. And
Okay,
so we have to speak out.
okay.
But let me get to this. We have to be aware that this is a plan, and the plan was put in place 4 years ago when they start putting right-wing ideologues on the court system, especially the Fifth Circuit. If you notice what the Fifth Circuit just done about another case,
Mhm.
they put persons on there that are hostile to the interest of our community, and all along, well, and however, just because it's out there don't mean we quit and give up. We still have.
Right.
Okay, so that brings me to this question, statewide and local. So to kind of two questions, but so I'll do local first. And we touched on it, but if we've got a Hispanic councilman and 3 Black female council persons, how do we, and I know the population is, over 50% minority. What is our argument to, well, the council has diversified in recent years. It's changing. How many more minorities do you all want on the council? What is the rebuttal to that?
Well, you're right. Basically, you're going to have to articulate what we talked about here today. We want council people that represent the interests of the community that they serve. Now, that's easier said than done, because we know we can create ideal districts and we can still get outvoted because everybody don't think progressively like some of us like that. So it is a work in progress in the sense that we have to constantly register folks to vote and get out there and work and give our lives and everything else trying to get this done, because it takes effort and it takes work. I mean, I've been doing this for my whole life, and the Lord will call me home and I'll still be out there doing it, but it takes a lifetime of commitment to this stuff. You can't just, if a person just say they're in it for a year, then you really don't even need that person. I mean, you have to be committed.
Alicia, can I interject something real quick?
Yes, go ahead, Luis. Thank you, Mr. Gaines.
I think, with my studies in government and experience in government, I've always maintained that the real power in government is to the bureaucracy, city management. They're the real power holders. Policymakers, the city council are the policymakers, but the ones who write the policy is city management, the bureaucracy.
right.
There's where the power is. So the city management or the bureaucracy is advising the city council. And who are the bureaucracy? They're predominantly white.
You're right. Hey, you and I align. We think the exact same on this stuff. So, but like Mr. Gaines said, we're in it every day, all day, every day. It's a commitment for us, and it's become our life, and it's frustrating. We know who wields the power. He's right. It's not really your elected leaders. It's who's Cooper Street named after? Mr. Cooper, Mr. Collins, Mr. Cravens. Those people still run this city, and so they have the influence. It is what it is, and until we get engaged, not the people on this panel, and not even the people attending this meeting, because you're engaged, you're here. But until we get out there and get people educated, involved, give them their marching orders, tell them you don't have to do anything else but do these two things. Show up at this city council meeting, show up at this committee meeting. We've got to educate people and give them their marching orders, or else we will find ourselves in the same predicament. Y'all have heard me say it 1,000 times, going to Austin to march and protest and all that stuff. That's good, but the majority of the House and the Senate don't have the philosophies that we have. And so they can drive right past us, protesting, and Beto and NAACP and LuLAC and Malda. Everybody can be out there, League of Women Voters. Everybody can be out there protesting and rallying and press conferencing. But until we get people to the polls to change the balance of power in the Texas House, in the Texas Senate, we will always be behind the 8 ball. We'll always be in this position. We'll always be having, meetings like this, trying to figure out what to do. If we would have flipped the Texas House in November 2020 by nine seats, this would not be, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So
I would like to interject that all politics is local, and you cannot stay home and wait for the president to vote. You have to be engaged with your city council elections, your school board elections. And if you don't vote, that's your voice. Your vote does count. And, I get so angry when people tell me, well, they're not into voting and their vote doesn't count. When I participated in a overseeing a runoff election, a recount of that election for city council. And only two votes determined who was going to represent me. 2 votes. So don't tell me your vote doesn't count.
And so we're preaching to the choir, but we've got it, Deborah's message. You got to tell your cousin, and you got to tell your kids and everybody you see.
And if I may, I was able to participate and help out with the Senate race, Warnock and Ossoff in Georgia. And everybody, I love Stacey. Stacey knows how much I love her. But guess what? She didn't do anything. It was not rocket science. She built a team. She went to these rural areas where nobody was knocking doors. And the one thing they had that we don't have in Texas is the ballot curing. To be able to get people to correct their ballots or fix their signatures, or those little bitty things that our right-wing folk will just throw their votes out for, and they don't do this. And I worked the early elections board here in Galveston. Me and a really good friend of mine, and Ms. Corley Jackson, didn't hesitate to ask, She was like, well, you know, shouldn't we, you know, ballot, allow them to come and cure their ballots? And we were told just like this, we should, we could, but we're not. They called the people that they knew and allowed them to come in and do and fix their ballots, but they wouldn't allow it to be done across the board. So it can be done. It's not rocket science. It can be done. We just have to be firm enough and strong enough and unapologetic enough to stand our ground and make it happen.
And also
Okay.
the laws that are now in place to prevent people to vote, your mail-in ballot is subject to being disqualified, and you don't even know about it because your signature, someone has said your signature doesn't match what was on file 5 years ago or whatever, you know. And so I think it's up to us to also have everybody, even if you voted, to check to make sure that you haven't been removed from the ballot rolls.
Thank you, Deborah. Roxy, all right, so what is the NAACP? What do you have planned for us? Our next step for civic engagement? You want us to do what?
Our next step for civic engagement is basically, like Ms. Steph Swanson said, we are actually working with Tyler right now to get theirs together. So when I think civic engagement, the first thing that jumps to my mind is NAACP, because that's what we do best. So that is something that you and your unit will have to discuss, like, what does that look like to you guys? Do you have a civic center in mind, or, you know, what venue would you use? Would you offer a virtual option as well? How far and how deep can we reach your community on these occasions that we're going to have to engage the community? Do you need to get a DJ? Like, you know, what would that look like for you guys there? And
Okay.
I know most of us have the problem of voter turnout. So we have to think about, when we think venue, when we think whatever you're going to offer at this event besides the one-on-one, we have to consider our audiences and what would work in your area to inspire a good turnout with just local people. We have already discussed, they're not politicians. Most of them are going to look at us sideways about even, you know, broaching the subject. But, you know, we know what we need to do for our communities. Would it be better at a church? I have Push Democracy Forward that's launching. That's Bishop Dixon and the pastors across the state. They're launching their event here in Galveston County. I'm double timing it. I'm using it as an opportunity. I'm on program to talk about redistricting. We could think about bringing them there, because their philosophy is, you know, especially for those of us of color, our folk go to church and we can engage our churches. And if our pastors get on board with mobilizing their congregants, then we're not reinventing the wheel. We're actually having folk that are looking at these folk every week, reminding them and getting on them. And, you know, if Pastor Jones say do it, most folks are gonna be like, all right, Pastor Jones say, you know. So that's what we're doing here in Galveston, just to launch the idea, engage the community, and we'll do several more things like that. Not always with that group, but something similar where we're engaging our churches on a weekly, monthly basis and just touching those people, and then going out from there, you know, to our cousin Pookie up the street and Jose around the corner. And I've got some AAPI people that I've met in the last couple of weeks that I hope to bring into the fold. So I'm not leaving any rocks unturned. I heard you mention our Muslim brothers and sisters. I'll be hitting the mosque this week as well to make sure. Our Jewish brothers and sisters, I will be hitting the synagogue. I'm not going to leave any rock unturned, any person, any door unlocked. And with COVID, I'm not really a block walker, but I am a lit dropper, and I will talk to you when I'm passionate about these things. So those are just some ideas, just kind of throwing them out there at you.
Those are good ideas. And
basically,
so,
basically what we do for Get Out the Vote for GOTV, we're going to engage those same tactics as we get this information out about redistricting.
bam, perfect. You got to do the same thing. And, you know, again, people hate me when I say this. y'all will go to Austin for every rally, but on those beautiful days and weekends, because we've had good summer weather, we could have been and still can be block walking, knocking doors every day of the week, talking to people about redistricting and voting. It doesn't have to be during an election cycle. So with that, I am going to, I think we can end. We look forward to working with Roxy and Stephanie at the League of Women Voters. We appreciate the guidance. As you can tell, we have a great team here on the ground already. Luis, Deborah, Marvin, and Gabe are fearless. They are unafraid. Our voice will be heard at City Hall. And so I have no worries about that. I have a good team. We have a good team here locally. I can go do other things because of these guys, and they keep me updated and educated. And icing on the cake is to have your support in your organization, support in helping us draw these maps that we will present to City Council. So we appreciate it. We understand it's going to be a fight. We also are, Luis, LuLAC, and NAACP, we have a good working relationship with the city. So we appreciate that, but we know it's always going to be, there's always going to be a battle. And so we're ready for that. So thanks to you all. Thank you, Mr. Gaines, for never leaving our side. He knows everything about everything. So we appreciate your lifelong commitment to this. And I want to thank everybody that attended, and that ends our meeting.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye.
Thank you,
having
everyone.
me.
Register to
Mhm.
vote.
See y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.